Hello there, welcome to another episode of the Rugby Nats Talk Show from me, Paul Laidler, and Mike Tewksbury. We're going to be talking about a couple of things this week, most notably amongst them the situation with referees, and of course we'll come on to the roundup later on. But Mike, dealing firstly with referees, it's very, very easy to be first in the queue to criticise referees and whatever, but at the end of the day, if they're not standing in the middle of the park with a whistle, we don't have a game.
No, you're perfectly right. We just don't have a game. I mean, you can have 26 players and a referee and you'll still get a game. You can have 28 players and a referee, you'll get a game. You know, you can have 30 players and no referee and no game.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think that it is worrying that lower down the levels now, there appears to be problems, not with the first 15s, but with, second and third teams getting referees. And of course, they're important to a club. They're important to a club's finances in terms of filling the coffers from the bar,
Yep.
Staying after matches for a drink, etc. So, it is a problem. It is a problem.
I think sort of like broadly, you and I have agreed that one of the things we need to talk about is recruitment. But it sort of comes across several different issues there, because if the referee societies or the clubs or the game in general are not recruiting well enough, it has a knock-on effect in that the quality goes down. You can overplay a referee. They could do a couple of games at the weekend, do their hammy or whatever. But then all of a sudden, because the referees that are available are busy doing society games on a Saturday, has a knock-on effect that it ends up with being club referees or willing volunteer doing a Colts game on a Sunday, or even worse, a ladies' game on a Sunday, and you tend to get sort of like the leftovers at the weekend. And the only way to, on a Sunday, the only way to get around that is to recruit, but it seems to be getting harder and harder.
Yeah, I think there's a variety of avenues that you could use to recruit. It's not always the responsibility of the clubs. I mean, at Reading Enzians, and I'm not just promoting this, but we've just started a Rams referee academy, and Ashley Rowden, the former Premiership referee, has agreed to run the academy. It was his brainchild, and we've nominated about 5 youngsters to come along so they can get into refereeing, see if they like it, receive instructions from Ash regarding the laws of the game, how they manage a game, etc. So that's one thing that a club could do. I know the counties use Facebook, they use social media, but I was interested really reading this week that the RFU, and I think I'm right here, have actually cut down the referees department. They used to have 4 regional officers, and then under each officer there would be.
I've not seen that.
Yeah, there was another. There was an assistant. Well, now there are just the 4 regional officers, and I think that a lot of the efforts regarding referees and the recruitment of referees, you get the impression that it's really aimed at the top level of the game, or that's what you're trying to progress the players through to. The referees.
Referees through to, yeah. But I completely agree with you, because I know how hard our referee coordinator works to try and recruit people. He obviously belongs to his own society, and I think he's an assessor now as well. But if anybody shows the slightest glimmer of having an aptitude with a whistle, he's all over them like a rash. And clubs are paying for their courses, or the referee society I think possibly contribute, but he's been quite successful in getting people on the courses, but even he's got a problem retaining them. I mean, I've got certain knowledge that he's probably had about 10 people go on courses over the last 2 years, but there's only 3 that regularly take the middle of the park. And what's happening? Do they sort of fall out of love with it? Do they find, deem themselves not fit enough, can't keep up with play, or not good enough, or is the feedback not good enough? Is the follow-up training not good enough? There's something happening that if you've got 10, 12 volunteers and you've only got a conversion rate of 3, what's happening with the wastage?
Yeah, I mean, that's a difficult one to answer. And when we move on to young referees, I think there is some idea of what goes on there. We can discuss that. I think the retention, is very, very important, especially when volunteers, individuals work so hard to get these guys aboard. But I think is it symptomatic of the game in general that if you can't reach a certain level, for example, a player can't play for the first team, he moves
falls out
on.
of love with it.
Yeah, he falls out of love with it.
Yeah.
And is that just the society we now live in, and we have to adapt accordingly?
I think there's a certain element of that to it, without a shadow of a doubt. We're slightly more successful with the youngsters, but then you've got the dilemma of if they're still playing, they've got a choice then. Drive referee or play or whatever. But if you've got a lad or a lady that injured themselves, they're not so different because they still want to be out. You know, they may not be able to play, but they still want to be out doing something. Keeping the youngsters on board is slightly more difficult because there's so much for them to do in their lives.
Yeah, there is. I mean, there are so many options with other sports and other recreational activities.
Yeah.
I mean, I would be interested to see how the Rams Academy, Referees Academy pans out eventually. I think we've got 6 guys on it, and it'll be interesting monitoring their progress and our ability to retain them in the game. But I think we see at our level, and I don't know if you'll see at level 6 and below, an increasing number of younger referees taking charge of matches. And this is a bit of a conspiracy theory, but
Something like you.
yeah. But I do wonder whether this is really driven by World Rugby, in that they're interested only at the top level of the game. If we're honest, they pay lip service, I think, to what goes on lower down. Perhaps a little harsh, but I don't think it's far from the point. They want the referee to look the part. So, he's got to be around about 35. He's got to be fit.
Athletic,
He's got to be athletic. He's got to be confident. He's got to look as if he's control. And so that process starts when these guys are about 18 or 19. And I think the lower levels are used really as a testing ground to see whether these fellas are able.
Well, it's a fishing pond, isn't it? And then when they find somebody with talent, they get fast-tracked.
Yes.
And they go up.
Yes.
And as they go up into National 3, National 2, whatever, it still means we're short down here.
Well, yes, yeah. I mean, that is the consequence. It's okay higher up, because I think what is happening is that it's not just ability that they're fast-tracked, it is a process of age. Or that's what it appears to be. I mean, this season at Reading Games, out of the 7 referees we've had, only Sarah Cox is she's the most experienced referee that we've had, and she has come up, through the stages on a gradual progression. I think she's an excellent referee. The other guys are all inexperienced. They've all just come in at this level. And there is certainly, I think, variations in their ability. But then what happens when somebody sits down and thinks, well, this guy's not going to make it? And so, you have to tell him, well, you're not going to be a professional referee, because I think initially there is a little, the carrot is dangled, isn't it? How about being a professional referee, full-time job, up until you're about 40 odd, you're involved in the game, you're the centre of attention. It is an attraction, people want to do it. But of course, when they reach this level where they're not going to progress, they know they're not going to progress. Do they, like the players, then just drop out, find something else to do, go and play golf, whatever?
Yeah, well, you've got broad enough shoulders to stay in the game and operate at a lower level with a bit of luck.
I think one thing I've noticed, my criticism of the young guys, you get some good fellas, there is no doubt about it, but I sometimes question their sort of love of the game. It is a personal trip for them. I would question their empathy with the players. They come into the clubhouse, they're pleasant enough guys, you have a chat with them, and they go out and with the help of the touch judges, they manage the game. Personally, I don't think a referee is infallible. I don't even look for that. But I look to see somebody enjoying themselves, somebody who can talk to the players, someone whom the players respect. And I think I just wonder now that it's a little too satinised in terms of, it's very rigid, it's very politically correct. I mean, it always amuses me. They come up to you after the game and the question
Anything
is,
for me?
anything for me? And of course, as soon as you...
I think they get taught that.
Yeah, they do. That's the first thing, And if you come up with something which they don't like, then this glazed look appears, the shutters come down, and they're immediately on the defensive. So my view is, if you don't want an honest response, don't ask the question, just go off and then we'll just have a chat about it. And I think that is gradually taking over the game, and it's something which I don't really think is healthy. Rugby is a difficult game to referee. I'd accept that, but it's made a lot easier these days with
clear rules and.
Well, yeah, I think the law's quite clear. I think you've got the referee's assistants running touch.
Only at your level, not at ours.
Well, yeah. It's not so easy without the touch judge. I accept that. And then you've got video evidence of the matches. So if there are, and there's very little foul play. I mean, you go back 20, 30 years ago, it used to be mayhem. I mean, I remember
part of the reason for playing, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, do you remember George Crawford? He was a top list London Society referee, one of the top referees in England, and it was a famous incident when he was refereeing Bristol against Newport, and it was just one. They moved from one brawl to the next, and in the end, he walked off the pitch. He said, I haven't come to referee. He's a police superintendent. I'm not giving up a Saturday
I'm not a boxing
to do this.
referee.
No. So the game has progressed. It's moved on. It's easier to referee, but I think the guys have to enjoy it a lot more. And to me, there doesn't seem that real enthusiasm, that real desire, to stay in rugby no matter what the obstacles.
Down at our level, I do find it quite easy to speak to a referee after a game. Sometimes the reason why I don't is because I'm too cross and I don't want to say anything stupid. But
crack on it.
No. I think at our level they do listen to constructive criticism, but one thing that you can't really, I can't get my head around, is the inconsistency that you get sometimes in the course of 80 minutes. How can you be so inconsistent? If you've got your bee in your bonnet, be consistent about it, but don't forget about it for 10 minutes in the middle or 10 minutes at the end. Be level with your style all the way through the game.
Yeah, I think that in many ways, I think that's a learning process, depending upon the experience of the referee. Others really, it's like players, isn't it? Some players have got it, and the vast majority never have and never will do.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same with the referee. I mean, I went to watch Reading University last week and play Imperial, and it was a London Society referee. Now, he gave a total of 32 penalties.
It's quite
now, that's really, a decision every 2 minutes. And I don't think he saw that was a problem. I think he yellow carded one person, but rather than perhaps set out his markers early.
Put his foot down, yeah.
But I don't think he knew the laws that well, actually. I think he's just refereed.
He wasn't a student as well, he was at musical college. He thought he was in the orchestra?
I think he was, actually, yeah. No, he was an older gentleman, and but that creates its own problems. I think the players get frustrated with it.
Yeah.
So I think you have these levels or standards of refereeing, but I think we should, as a game, seek to improve it, not just at the top end. I think we should strive to ensure that at least the guy would have an element of consistency, no matter what level you go to.
I think it's lower down that we're feeling it, but we need to move on. The roundup is coming up. The ladies this week, if I can just start, nothing at the top at the Super Prem, and it was largely cup games this weekend. There was, in the ladies' results I looked through, and I know you've noticed it, but there was quite a lot of home walkovers or away walkovers given in the game.
Well, I was going to say, in the London division...
This is the men.
Yeah, of the men's competitions, I think there were 20 results or 20 fixtures published in the paper, and only 10 of them, the matches were played. And there were just 10 walkovers. And actually, I think all of those to the home side. And Dorset and Wilts, who seem to have their own preliminary competitions to go into these main RFU competitions. Out of 10 fixtures, only 3 were played. I mean, are we falling out of love
with cup
rugby? Which I always think cup rugby is exciting. It is.
Well, it's just funny that you should notice it from the men's game, and I noticed it from the ladies' game. It's quite disappointing because I've always quite enjoyed cup competitions, especially if you get on a bit of a run, and a bit of travelling, more excuse to go on a coach and whatever all that brings with it. But it is a shame because it really was quite noticeable this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, is there any reasons, do you think? I mean,
Well, I mean, I know I personally fell out of my club taking part in cup competitions. I felt we all felt they're at the wrong part of the season, a bit too early on, and I think it's probably just the way the dice fell. In the county cup that we were playing in, we were playing quite a lot of local teams that were in our league, and it was a bit like playing poker. You hadn't played them in the league, yet you were showing them your hand in the cup.
Yes.
And really, for clubs, league is where your money is.